you may have the best argument or point to make in the world, but if you can't organize your thoughts logically, other people will not be able to understand you. That's where W1d W2c Organization comes into play. Taking a look at this particular target, the one level is that you're missing elements or elements are out of order, so it really pertains to everything that is spoken about above. We'll start the 2 level then. 2 level says you can write imperfect paragraph structure. So overall, your essay may need some organizational work, but at least each paragraph is well organized in and of itself. At a 3 level, you still have your perfect paragraphs in play. You can also now use a strategy to organize all of your body paragraphs. And there's a list here, we'll go into that in more depth next. You can also use headings. Think of these as mini titles or section titles, or if we were talking and comparing it to a novel, chapters. At the 4 level, not only can you write in perfect paragraph structure and use a strategy, but it's the most logical strategy. You're also still using headings appropriately. Alright, we'll start at that 2 level, what you have to have for that, and that is the perfect paragraph. I know this is something that you've talked about before, so consider this just a review. We can go back to that lovely method of say it, explain it, so what it. And if you've forgotten what that means, if you say it at the start of your paragraph, you're going to give a clear topic sentence which includes the evidence that you have come up with to support your claim. 1 evidence per paragraph. Once you've given your evidence, you're going to explain it. This is where you give 1 to 3 details and connect them to the evidence. And I say 1 to 3 with the understanding that you're probably going to be aiming more for that 3 level. But if you have one really strong detail, you can have a shorter paragraph. It's important here, though, too, that you don't just give the details, but that you connect them to the evidence. This relates to the idea of explanation, which is another target, but I'll give you some examples of that here, too. Finally, you need to so what it. Connect the evidence back to the claim at the end of the paragraph. Consider, why does this paragraph even matter? Answering that question will help you give a good so what for the paragraph. Or why does this evidence matter? Okay. An example here for you, and this is working with the expository essay example we have started up. Again, the claim is Wilfred Owen's Dulce et decorum est reveals the effects war has upon soldiers both during and after battle. And I've pulled some pieces that you've probably seen if you've been working through these in the recommended order. For my say it, where I need to give my evidence, I do simply give the evidence statement I developed earlier. Owen paints a vivid image of rundown soldiers to show how damaging the war is on their bodies and minds. Notice this connects, we were talking about the damage of war, this connects into the claim, the effects war has upon soldiers. And then I'm getting a bit more specific here. These soldiers are run down. Now I need to give some text proof to support that. So this is where I get into my explain it and giving my details and connecting them back to soldiers being run down. He describes how the soldiers' boots wore out or were lost, but they, and here's a specific detail, limped on bloodshot. Even worse, they were, and another specific quote here, deaf even to the hoots of tired, outstripped 5-9s that dropped behind. Now I need to connect these 2 lovely text details back to the evidence statement. How do these show that they're run down? These men were so run down, I even used that same word to help make the connection clear, that they walked barefoot and bloody, ignoring the bombs, which is potential death, that's kind of a big deal, which were dropped among them. So I've connected my 2 quotes back into why that means they were run down. Now I'm ready to so what it. What is so significant about this paragraph? All they, meaning the soldiers, could think to do, stand to do, was put 1 foot in front of the other, revealing how crushing war can be on the body and mind of the soldier. And they're so run down that that's literally all they can do. And that shows the devastating effect that war can have. So short, sweet, this doesn't need to be long, even with all the explanation in there. We've got 2 text details to support, a clear say it, explain it, so what it. To earn a 3 for this particular target, you'll need to have your perfect paragraphs in play and also choose a good organizational strategy. Now, if you have been working through the Reading for Information standards, these might look familiar. They appear there under RI 4.5, and that might be a good target to look at this time too to get a bit more information on these. I'm going to give a brief overview here. Organizational strategies that you might choose to use in your writing include the chronological. So if you are doing any historical writing, and you want to write about things as they occurred in time, the chronological might be a good one. but that would really be more historical, which may not be what we're doing here in this class. List of items, not the best strategy to choose, but if none of your paragraphs are more important than another, it doesn't much matter what order they come in. So as is, no important paragraphs, doesn't matter what order you put them in. That's a symbol for paragraphs right there for you. Compare, contrast, make sure that you give both a comparison and a contrast. Cause and effect, again, give both. Definition and example, give both. Now, order of importance, this is very specific to persuasive writing. So if you're doing any of the W1, the persuasive prompts, this is the strategy you should be using. You end with most important paragraph. And then problem solution, as with cause and effect and compare and contrast above, give both. Now when you're setting yourself up to make sure you're using one of these organizational strategies, you can actually annotate your outline. I would recommend that you start by choosing the structure that you think will best fit your topic. So get your topic and your claim in mind before you go any further, before you even start brainstorming your evidence. Think, how should I best organize this? Then you can add your labels, and you see I've given you an example here. Add your labels off to the side of the outline, and if you don't like this outline template, create your own. That's also fine. But make sure that you include those labels so that you are fully meeting the structure. And then some tips for you for some of these structures. Compare, contrast. One way to set that up if you're dealing with a shorter piece, you don't have a huge word requirement, for instance, you could have one body paragraph that talks about comparisons and one that talks about contrast. If you're going to have a somewhat longer piece, there's a lot to talk about, each paragraph could have a single topic and feature both the comparison and contrast within it. For cause and effect, usually an introduction will give either a single cause or a single effect, and your body paragraphs are actually going to expand on the other. So that's something to keep in mind. You might need to annotate your outline even above the boxes that are provided. For definition and example, the introduction will typically give the definition, and body paragraphs will typically explore the examples. Problem and solution will typically give the basic problem and solution in the claim, and then get more detail in the following paragraphs. So usually the problem would be fully explored first, and then in later body paragraphs the solution will get more detail and why it might work. The final piece that you need for this target are headings, and I think this is new for the 11th grade standards, something you haven't worked with in your previous years. At minimum, this will be you putting the words introduction, discussion, and conclusion in your essay centered before the appropriate spots. Introduction obviously comes before the introduction. You would write discussion before your first body paragraph, and then you wouldn't need to do any further headings until right before your conclusion, when you'd write conclusion. This is pretty accepted in most academic pursuits. So if you were to go into math or science, you would see these types of headings used. In the literary field, you get a little bit more freedom, and since this is a literary class, I'm going to encourage you to expand beyond introduction, discussion, and conclusion. You could, for instance, connect to the evidence statements or the key details. You could use an allusion to another author or text, maybe a favorite quote that you think connects to what you happen to be writing about. Make it a short quote, though. You could use figurative language, too, but again, don't get too lengthy. The key with headings is that they're like titles. You don't want them to be a full sentence. So just an example of what it might look like here, and again, I've pulled from our paragraphs that we've done in previous targets for the essay on Wilfred Owen's Dulce et Decorum Est. As you'll see, I've stuck with the basic for introduction, and that's totally acceptable even if you're getting fancy for your body paragraphs. For my first body paragraph, which we worked through above, I actually pulled on some of the key details here. We had the bloodshot quote, and then we had the deaf quote. They were deaf to the noises of the bombs. And I really felt like those two words stood out, and that's why I chose those particular quotes and used them as my explanation. So I pulled them up here for my heading for that body paragraph. Let's pretend that I went on and wrote another body paragraph. The next section of the poem talks about Owen recalling a man dying because of gas, and he talks about it in his dreams. He didn't respond to it at the time, but he says in all of his dreams, and the exact quote is, all my dreams, he sees him over and over dying of the gas. So I pulled that quote with the understanding that I'd probably use that within the body paragraph. Then, if I didn't have any further body paragraphs to use, I'd give my conclusion and then my concluding paragraph. So that's headings in a nutshell. tagged onto the other elements of organization. Really key target here, so make sure that you spend some good time with this one.